Having one of Mysuru's most renowned and globally acclaimed entrepreneurs, Mr. Sid Mookerji. The last time I anchored an event was when the leadership installation ceremony happened, and there was a very prominent statement that the past president, Mr. Rajit Pai, made, which said SDM. He said, shit happens, deal with it, move on. And today I'm here to say, Sid happened. And we are really lucky that it happened, because then TiE happened, and because TiE happened, all of us are here today. So let us all give a huge round of applause because Sid happened. I would like to take a moment here and share something which Mr. Sudanwadi, the current president of TiE Mysuru, wanted me to share. And he went and explained the idea to Mr. Sudanwa. And Sudanwa sir mentioned that he was not fully towards it. He had a little bit of reluctance when it was proposed by Mr. Sid. But then he had a way of getting him to agree to it, buy into it, establish the board, start the core founding team. And because of that, many entrepreneurs in Mysuru are being benefited. Not just that, many entrepreneurs are coming together and are thinking about working together and are having a relationship outside of just business. So for that, on behalf of Mr. Sudanwa, I also would like to extend my deepest regards to you, sir. So thank you everybody, all the board members, the TiE charter members, the TiE associate members, all the guests, all the dignitaries and everyone present here today. Without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Sabarishan, TiE charter member, to deliver the welcome address for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Adarsh, and very good evening to all of you. A warm evening. It's quite warm outside. Hearty welcome to all of you. I thought of starting with an anecdotal incident or event. Perhaps in 2018, CII had an annual event in Mysuru, which every year it has. And the theme was Mysuru as a startup destination. And as a past chairman of CII, I was there. Many of past chairmen were there. The first session was presentation or discussion, panel discussion by some VCs from Bangalore, some private equity firms, angel firms. The impression that was gained in the first session, this was before TiE, that Mysuru is not meant for a startup. Mysuru is meant for Vrindavan Gardens, Chamundi, Bandipur, tourists. Tourists are always known. Now, I was a little despondent and I said, okay, kya baat kar rahe hain? So I said, Rakesh Babu was there. Most of you know Rakesh Babu, Vinno Mantra. So after the tea break, I said, I'm going, because he has organized the... Then he said, no, you sit back, listen to some of the startups who are going to present. I had no idea of what they were. And we had 3 startups presented. Most of you know them. One is Bellatrix Aerospace. There's Rohan Ganpati. The other one is our own Meti M2 Narayan Swami. Then, of course, Srinivas Vardarajan. You saw an amazing presentation the other day. And that nailed a point that Mysuru is, after all, not bad. Because these startups were not known at all. They are all homegrown. And when you hear their passionate story, it certainly gave me goosebumps. I'm sure many of you would have, those who have witnessed would have got goosebumps. So that was the kind. Now, then you connect that dot with the dot that Sid, I don't know whether Sid was aware of that predicament. He started this TiE program here. And thanks a lot to you, Sid. He has sown the idea, seeds of startup ecosystem, and we are trying to live up to his expectation. Of course, we have a long way to go. We just had a chat. So TiE Mysuru is an infant, 3 years old. But I think TiE Mysuru is born in the generation next. You look at the programs that we have done. It's not only the TiECon. Last year's TiECon was a hybrid event. 15 speakers globally participated, and a lot of people attended. And overall, 1,000 entrepreneurs attended either virtually or in presence. That's a great achievement for TiE Mysuru. Again, TiE University. I think Mysuru chapter is the only chapter in Karnataka to have organized TiE University, thanks to Mahesh Rao, and now, of course, Shiv is taking the mantle. Shiv Shankar is driving this whole program. Some of the pitching that was we saw were quite outstanding. And we had the team Codeco going to Silicon Valley to present their Google map for water resourcing, so to speak. A lot of them, and I think 2-3 of them got an elevator pitch award from the Karnataka government. So this is something to spread the word around. So Mysuru is not just about Vrindavan Gardens and going to temples and startup ecosystem is already there. Now what TiE Mysuru does is, as you can see here, we have identified probably 4 pillars of building a strong ecosystem for startup. One is, of course, your risk taking or entrepreneurship. So we bring in a lot of founder stories who have roots in Mysore. One of them is, of course, Sid here. We are going to hear him soon. And then a lot of other, like Srinivas Varadarajan, so many people have shared their story, shared their trials and tribulations, so that people can relate to them and they can get inspired. That is one pillar. The other pillar is the knowledge series. Like, what do they need to do technology wise? They may not have domain expertise, they can get somebody, or even things like compliance. I attend many, I'm also a budding angel investor. I attend a lot of pitching program. Many of the startups are faced with this question about compliances and things like that. To start with, they don't pay much attention, they outsource it to somebody, but somebody is busy with so many other things, it doesn't happen. Then when it comes to the neck, the startup founders are in a trouble. So compliance is one such thing. There are so many other areas of knowledge. Then we have mentorship leadership programs. That is another pillar. We bring in people who can advise startup founder. And we also bring in investor series program, where you have a typical VC or an angel investing firm. What do they expect from the founders? And what the founders can expect from the VC and the... So this is very important. So that is how TiE Mysuru is currently engaging. And we must say that we had some traction, very good traction, at least in some of the areas. And we look forward to carrying it forward to next level. Sid's continuous seeding of ideas with us will certainly help. And we have also discussed some of the ideas today, how to spruce up the ecosystem here, how to engage. Like, for example, TiE young entrepreneurs going to the high schools, higher secondary schools, and propping up their interest. And hopefully even NEP will help, because there are some departure from the traditional education system that children are exposed to some kind of practical orientation towards some trade, commerce, or whatever it is. So this is about all. So I would welcome again heartily all of you, especially Sid, and hand over back to Adarsh to take over and run the show. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that overview and bird's eye view of what TiE is, what TiE has done, and where TiE has to grow still. So now I would like to give a formal introduction of Mr. Sid Mookerji, graduate of BITS Pilani in electrical and electronics engineering. Mr. Sid went on to work at Tata Consultancy Services for a period of about 3 years, and then in Deloitte as a lead consultant for a period of 2 years before heading back to SPI as the CEO. Started working as the CEO in 1994 and was the CEO for a period of about 22 years. During this time, as we all know and have heard and have celebrated, SPI grew magnificently and it became one of the most prominent leading retail segment products in the whole country, or in the whole world, so to speak. After a brief while of about 8 years at SPI, he also pursued his executive MBA from Emory University in Atlanta itself. And we all have heard about the great story of his exit and how the Cognizant took over, and how there were so many interesting synergies that happened, and after which he started to run Silver Spirit Global LLC as the CCO and the founder before starting Silicon Road Ventures. Silicon Road Ventures is again a very successful seed fund that was started in Mysore, and it also has a venture capital fund in the USA. There have been so many investments that have been made in the retail and food tech segments, and all the startups have seen phenomenal growth since the time Sid started this venture. He has also had various awards to his name, some of them being the Coles College Hall of Fame inductee,
SIG Mostly Entrepreneurial Leader Award, and SIGI VC Horizon Award. So with this introduction, not to forget, again, as both of us have mentioned, he was the person who played the most instrumental role in starting the TiE Mysuru chapter, in bringing all of us together and providing us with this wonderful platform to be a part of. So we'd like to know from Sid about the topics of how to start up, in fact, how to scale up, and certain questions for the young entrepreneurs here is, should you pursue a higher education after you start something, or should you finish your higher education and then start something? And then how to go about investing, and when to seek an investment, and how to go about it, and maybe anecdotes from your life. And I just noticed one thing, though, on a funny side of thing is, the SID is SID, and then SPI is SPI, and then TiE is TIE, and then Silicon Road SVC. So most of the letters you've done kind of has the 3-letter acronym that it comes down to. So is that coincidence, or is that something you believe in? I'd like to know everything about what keeps you going, and what can we all do to keep going like you do. So with that, I call you on the stage, sir. The stage is yours. Thank you. Very sorry to mention, being a true Mysorean, I forgot about TiE Atlanta. So he's also the president of TiE Atlanta. So he's here to also talk about how TiE Mysuru can grow, in addition to all of us as entrepreneurs. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Adarsh. Thank you, Sabareesan, for the really warm introduction. I don't deserve all the accolades. We are all a team, and we have built TiE Mysuru together. And I'm very impressed with what I've seen in terms of growth. But we'll talk about that in a minute. It's always great to come back home, because this is home. I grew up in Mysore, went to CFTRI school, and I went to Mahajana Junior College. And my father used to work at CFTRI and he was there for 30 plus years. And, when I was growing up, and I know some people like Sabareesan will agree with me that India was a poor country. Mysore was a pensioner's paradise. When I was growing up, the thing to do was, the best thing a person could do was to work for the government of India or the state government of Karnataka. You'd get a pension all your life, nothing to worry about. India was a poor country. When I was growing up, my father and mother would tell me, finish your food, because if whatever food you're not eating, some child in India, elsewhere in India or in China or whatever, is going hungry, right? So eat your food. So there was food shortages in the country, and it was a very, very different time. Today, we all belong to this real vibrant economy, not just in India, but all over the world. In general, standards of living has increased tremendously. Growing up in the 70s, how many cars were on the roads? I mean, you could count them on your fingers. Now, you need to count, if you want to count the number of cars that some of you drive, probably you can't count that on your fingers, right? Meaning there are so many cars that even individuals own. So there's a lot of great prosperity that has happened. And I have myself evolved, of course, from having to kind of wanting to, I went to a good engineering college, went to BITS Pilani, and after that, I went into the workforce for a little while, worked for TCS. But always, for some reason, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I started off the company. I mean, you know about SPI. The company grew quite a bit. I learned a lot as I was going along. I had some great mentors. But I also made a lot of mistakes, because I did not have good entrepreneurs with prior experience telling me what to do and how not to make the mistakes that probably they would have made, right? Because my mentors were not necessarily having that same kind of experience. My company acquired 14 other companies. We were in 8 different countries, and everything was kind of, going in a room when everything is dark, trying to find things because there was no guidance. So hopefully TiE and organizations like TiE will provide that kind of support. But, SPI was great, 22 years. 3,000 people worldwide. After a while, it becomes really tiring. I was missing kind of interacting with people. The first 300 people that were with SBI roughly, I knew their names, I knew their spouses' names. I just have that gift. I remember names in most cases. I'm getting older now, but when I remembered, it was much more fun. I could go and talk to them and find out how things are going, etc. But as it became bigger and bigger and bigger, it was not as much fun. So it's not that there were other aspects of the job that I found really enjoyable. M&A is really interesting. As we were growing and talking to some of the largest retailers in the world, that was really, really great. But, at the end of the day, the opportunity for an exit came. And it's very interesting because I remember that I had started the company. We probably had, less than $10 million of revenue. And I was trying to hire a good head of sales. And he asked me, that's awesome, what will I get? I said, I'll give you some equity and, I'll give you a good salary and things like that. And he said, but what's your exit plan? I said, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. What do you mean by exit plan? Because I had no idea what an exit meant, right? That is the kind of thing that, of course, now every entrepreneur thinks about exit, but that's the way to think about it too, right? But I had a CFO, and the CFO, he really gave me a lot of great inputs on how to go about taking your company to the market and identifying potential buyers. And I remember we went to 6-7 cities, pitched probably to 60 or 70 different people, all of them either venture funds or PE funds or strategic buyers, and mezzanine lenders, and you kind of keep telling the same story over and over and over. And then went through the process, and we had letters of intent from probably about a dozen of them, and picked the top 5 or 6, negotiated, and it was a fabulous process. I'm telling you this story because you probably, some of you who are entrepreneurs, are thinking of how do I have an exit myself. It doesn't happen by magic. You have to actually take those specific steps and make it so that you are exhausting, putting all your information in front of as many people as possible, and then picking the best possible deal out of all of those, right? So that is something I learned. So the exit was great. Eventually, a PE company came in, and we did what is called a leveraged buyout. Leveraged buyout is where you also, along with the transaction, you also take debt. My company, we had no debt. We had no external elements on the cap table at all. It was a clean cap table. Me and my family owned 100% of the company, and we had some stock options. But they put debt on the company. I was able to take that money off the table, essentially, which means that I could take it to myself. But there was debt on the company. It was a very strong cash flow company, so there was no problem there. And so I gave up 51% control, and then 3 years later, Cognizant came and bought the whole company, and the PE company made 3x of their investment, and my second return was even higher than the first return. So it was a great event. And so again, the only reason I'm telling you this is that as you go through this process, it's important to kind of plan, right, and understand what each aspect means. So what the mistakes that entrepreneurs make is, one is what I did, which is they don't think about an exit. Remember that everything has a price. So you just have to know what that price is in your mind, so that you're not taken by surprise when somebody comes and makes you an offer, right? So you know exactly what you're looking to do. The second is you need to then plan how you would go about having that exit on your own terms. Now, it's perfectly okay to say that I'll never have an exit, and I'm going to make this into a lifestyle business, I'm going to pass it down to my family, and so on and so forth. That's perfectly okay as well, if that is what you want to do. But sometimes it is probably more beneficial for you and lets you free yourself up to do better things if you are able to have that exit. And and so basically we had that great exit, and I'm going to embarrass my son Shanish a little bit here. because he came to me, he was at the time going to Georgia Tech to be a computer engineer. And he came to me in 2015 when I just had signed the contract with the PE company and sold 51%, they had control. And he said, Dad, I want to tell you, I want to work for SPI. I want to come and work for you. I said, son, it's too late, But you know what, I love the idea, I absolutely want to work with you. So the next phase was where, Sean is now working with me on the venture fund, one of the greatest joys of my life, that he's there every day with me. But, it was that kind of a very uncertain phase. And the other thing is, actually, I had a great mentor. He is one of the best known marketing professors in the world out of Emory University. And he told me that, when you have your exit, you got to think about what you want to do next, because today your identity is SPI, right? I said, yes, but I don't think of it like that. I'm perfectly fine with not, SPI not being associated with me. But he said, no, but think about it like this, whether you like it or not, it's part of your identity, right? So, and exactly what happened was, after I sold the company and I exited an executive role, I had all these emails and calls. It was like somebody in my family had died, right? And they were saying, I'm so sorry that you're no longer part of SPI. I said, yeah, but it's a great event for me and my family, this is what I was planning for and all that. But it's very important. It's a very important thing to think about, how you would mentally handle something like that. So having had that exit, I really, of course, thought really hard about what I want to do, okay? And I decided that, and my wife, Sophie and I, who has been such a big support to me through all of this, so she and I talked about it. Shanish also was part of the conversation, our daughter Sheena as well, and we talked about it, and what we decided was, we want to give back, and we want to give back. That doesn't mean that we are also not monetizing some part of it, but we want to help entrepreneurs, okay? We also want to help socially, social causes, right? So there are certain sections of society that are unable to really take care of themselves, and they are in bad situations. So we want to do that. And also, personally, I wanted to give back to the cities which had made me successful. So I wanted to give back to the city of Mysuru, because not only did it give me education, this is where I set up, as you know, what became a big part of SPI, 1,200 people working here. It was really interesting when we started off. The only link to the city of Mysuru to the internet was a 64 kbps link, right? And Sudhanva was using half of it, right? And everybody, there was like 6 or 7 companies that were using it, and they said, we'll give you all of it, but you are sharing it with so many people. And also you were sharing with all dial-up users. So it was a really interesting time, where at 6 p.m. somehow the connection becomes even slower, because everybody is going home and dialing and trying to get to the internet, at that time. But this is the city that, I love the city, right? So I'm a very stubborn guy, and there are people who came to me when I started off SPI, and exactly, what is this? You are an electrical engineer from BITS Pilani, and what are you doing? Why are you wasting your life like this, right? And people, very well-meaning people. People came to me and they said, oh, you started the company we started the company in Mysuru in 97. Now it's good, but this Y2K thing is going to get over, and when that's over, there'll be no business. So why are you continuing to do this? Stop it. It's okay, you've been successful. Good. And people told me, there is no way that you can do anything in Mysuru. Mysuru is a pensioner's paradise. Nobody's going to come and work here. And I said, it's okay. There's always got to be a start, and I'll be that start. So there was that. And, of course, there another guy called Narayan Murthy followed me to Mysuru, by the way. So the Infosys campus was in 2000, I think, is when they launched it. But I'm so happy that they did it. And then there was, of course, Wipro, L&T, and so many others. Now it has become a lot more prevalent. But yeah, my goal was to give back to the city of Mysuru, give back to entrepreneurship, and thought about how to do it. Because see, this was again a new phase in my life, and it was not something I had done. You know, I knew how to build a company, I knew how to scale a company. I had made all the mistakes, but now I wanted to impart that knowledge to other entrepreneurs. I wanted to impart that knowledge, teach them how not to make the mistakes that I made. You know, be the mentor that I could not find when I was running and growing my own company. So I started looking for various forums. I went to different colleges. I've spent a lot of time with Dr. Parsuraman trying to do something at SDM. Went to JCE, went to NI in Mysore. We have MOUs with CFTRI and all that, trying to figure out how to kind of make this happen in the city. Okay. And I mean, yeah, we did 2 accelerator programs and things like that. In the US as well, Georgia Tech, which is Shanish's alma mater, we went and we, you know, worked closely with them, etc. And then over a period of time, you know, I realized that, you know, the thing which is missing more than anything else is people that are willing to provide capital. So there is something which is very interesting that's happening in the world today. When, you know, even probably 15, 20 years ago, all the innovation used to happen in the laboratories of very large corporations, right? So you had Xerox had their Palo Alto labs, and, you know, IBM had huge R&D. You know, they used to kind of own how to build solid computers, right? Intel owned everything about chips, and that was how innovation happened, right? If you wanted to get a new kind of soap, you can't do it yourself, right? I mean, hats off to Dhirubhai Ambani, right? Because all of it used to happen with P&G and Procter & Gamble and Unilever, and they are the ones that was how innovation happened. But when the internet came, and when travel became, equalized the field, when you could have a website, and my website and the largest company's website is the same thing. I mean, it's just 2 URLs. It's a very great equalizer. And so what happened, and then with everything that's going on, over a period of time with cloud computing and various other things which have happened, you know, now it's very easy for people to set up their own organization and actually be a lot more nimble and a lot more cost efficient even, right, compared to what these large corporations can do. So now my area of expertise is retail and e-commerce. And I know that, you know, Amazon, for example, and Walmart are 2 examples of companies that are spending literally billions of dollars on R&D even today, right? But here's the thing. They cannot do it as well as the startups who are doing it for a very small fraction of the cost, a very small fraction of the cost. And the reason is because every time a large corporation has to make a decision, a significant decision, it has to go up all the way up the chain. So which is about 8, 10 people have to approve it, and maybe the board that has to convene and meet and things like that. If you wanted to buy, this was in the 90s, if you wanted to buy a laptop for an employee in IBM, okay, it had to get about 7 or 8 signatures, and it would take about 2 weeks. I actually worked with companies when I was at SPI where, you know, employees would come and they would sit there at their desks for 2 weeks doing nothing because they did not have computers. Now, what happens if you are the founder of a startup and you have a new employee? What are you going to do? You're going to either go to Amazon, hopefully same-day delivery, so that employee is immediately, or maybe even go to the store and buy one. I mean, I've done that so many times. Go to a store and buy it. I don't need anybody's permission. Think about the efficiencies that are being missed when you're in this situation, right? I mean, when you're in a very large corporation. But no, I mean, and if you're a very large corporation, you have to have process. You know, ask any expert in organizational design. Large corporations have to have bureaucracy. That's the only way in which they can function. If not, there'll be all kinds of mismanagement. So the world has come to a point where innovation, which has humongous value to every industry, is happening in startups, is happening in smaller companies, okay? So the real gold, if you will, in this new business environment is not in the large corporations. Large corporations trundle along 2% growth, 3% growth, 4% growth, right? Startups, they double their revenues every 2 months, 3 months, successful ones, right? And they are the ones that are defining how industries are going to evolve. They define it. It's no longer large corporations that are going to determine. IBM doesn't determine anymore where cloud computing is going to go. It's going to be some little startup that is going to say, here is how cloud computing is going to evolve. So, you as an investor, you as an entrepreneur, you as a person that is looking for a job, you all should think about taking advantage of this new ecosystem. This is the gold rush. This is when the people were digging for gold in Western US, right? This is where, I'm sure invaders came to India and they were finding all this money and whatever sitting around, and that is this. There is huge opportunity in this. And when somebody asks me that, hey, what about all these crazy valuations? I think a lot of it is justified. So, long story short, wanted to start a fund, and Shanisha, we have been talking about this for a while, and he came up with the name Silicon Road. It's the Silk Road for the Silicon era, right? It is perfect. We were going to focus on commerce, and we founded this fund in 2019, and Shanish was working at Intel. He came to work for the fund, and we have a great team now. It's a very small team. We have only 5 people working on the team, but man, this is so much of fun. I would not trade this for going back to a large corporation any time at all. So we have about over $100 million under management. We have made investments into 16 startups. Actually, even I want to do something similar in Mysore, and I will. But it's just COVID has taken that little backwards, a few steps backwards. But so we have made investments into 16 startups. Our multiple on invested capital in 2 years is 560%. There are companies that we have invested in that were about $500,000 of annual recurring revenue. When we invested in them, they are at about $12 million just in 18 months. They have more than 1,500%, right? There are 4 companies like that in our portfolio. Very, very bullish about where these companies will end up. We believe that a couple of them will become unicorns in the next 2 years. There's one company that does pay by text using proprietary methods to kind of transmit the tokenized information. Anyway, there's a lot of complexity, technical complexity there, but they have IP which is helping them kind of build a peer-to-peer payment mechanism on the credit rails, right, without using a bank. And then the other is the marketplace for sourcing and screening of gig workers, 1099 workers, right? So all these gig companies that are coming, like Uber and of course Zomato and all that, they are delivering. Well, when they go to a new city, they need to find people who will drive for them or whatever it is. And this company helps kind of creating a LinkedIn, if you will, for blue collar workers, growing at it and doubling their revenue every 2 years. Anyway, so these are the 2 months. Every 2 months, they're doubling their revenues. And so really, really exciting companies and great startup founders, but they all don't know how to scale, right? And so, one of the things I guess I should be talking about is how do you scale? And that's basically what I teach these founders. They listen to me not just because I'm giving them money, but also because I can help them solve the problems that they are facing and they don't know how to go about solving it. So there are some things that you can teach to a founder, some things you cannot. But in terms of scaling, the one thing that the mistake that many founders make is not investing enough in sales and marketing. So I'll just mention a couple of things here. There are many other factors, of course, right? So you have to think about strategically, how you're positioning your product, where your market is, established product market fit, listen to your customer, and all those things. I mean, those are all things you probably have heard about, and you should obviously have. It's the basic things for a product. So once you have a product and you begin to grow it, many people get stuck, right? They're saying, okay, I've got $5 million of revenue, annual revenue, or whatever the number is, but I cannot grow beyond that. I cannot go to 7, I cannot go to 10. I don't know what is going on. That guy, he did it. Well, that guy, he spent money on sales and marketing, right? So you have to have a very clear message which differentiates you from competition, firstly. If you don't, then there is no way in which you'll actually stand out. I mean, you cannot say, oh, it's a big market, I'll get a part of it. That's not how it works, right? The guy who is going to be in front of the customers are going to really win. So you have to, create a very clearly differentiated message, understand how your product appeals to your customer, how your customers buy the product or service, and then price in a manner which is consistent with all of that, right? I mean, how they look at your product, how they think about spending. And for example, if somebody is building a product that is training new employees, okay. I mean, we have one of our companies in our portfolio, and so I had to tell him that, well, he wanted to charge per transaction within his whatever. I mean, he's on the cloud, so every time it comes to the cloud, I want to charge you $1. I said, I mean, your customer doesn't care two hoots how many times he goes to the cloud, right? He cares, I'm training 500 employees that are coming to work for my organization. How much are you going to charge me per employee? Tell me that. That is how I'm going to budget. I'm not going to budget, oh, I'm going to go 10 to 25 times to the cloud. He doesn't care about that, right? So you got to kind of think about that. So this is the kind of mistake that people make. But the most important thing beyond that is also understanding where you need to spend the money. So the biggest investment that founders make is in sales and marketing. Okay, and I mean, I too, I'm an engineer by trade. I too, believe that money that you spend on sales and marketing, I used to believe, is a waste of money, right? You say, what the heck? I mean, where is my ROI on this? If I hire 3 engineers, I'll build a better product. Unfortunately, people don't know about your product in a vacuum, right? So you have to be out there constantly tweaking your message, understanding what customers are telling you, and then build accordingly. So that's one of the things. The other big aspect, which I'll also which is a mistake that many people make, is trying to skimp on accounting and legal services. Okay, so and I know it's a very small thing, but it can be very significant. You can pay a big price for it. Okay, so good accountants and good legal advisors will help you in not making life-threatening mistakes as you go about your business, about your regular business of kind of identifying customers, selling it. Actually, really good legal advisors and accountants will also introduce you to others who can make you successful in the ecosystem you want to operate in. Okay, so the biggest mistake, a big mistake that founders can make is not spending enough on what they don't consider to be absolutely necessary for selling a product. Absolutely necessary for selling a product, in their opinion, right? And that is that. Similarly, building boards. It's very important that as an organization you have enough advisors around you and pay them for it. Nothing is free, but you have to figure out how to get the advice that you need in order to be successful. Remember that even if you have a very unique product which nobody else in the world has, there are similar products that have already been built. Okay, there are people that have been there, done that, been successful, and you got to be able to kind of get them to advise you. Which brings me to TiE, and that's what TiE is all about. So as the president of TiE Atlanta, my objective is to really get as many entrepreneurs in the city, right, to become members of TiE, and then provide them with the kind of support. So it can be events like this. So this is a networking event, but also education maybe to a degree, but networking, education, mentoring, even investment, possibly incubation, all those facilities, either directly or through partners, you make it available to founders. And so we have programs which are, some of these programs, TiE University, which I know Mahesh Rao did a very, very good job with. I mean, hats off to you guys. You are one of the top 2 or 3 chapters in the world, okay? In terms of the number of participants and very high quality participants. And I mean, I have to tell you that even though I am president of TiE Atlanta, I had to go and tell my board members, do you know which chapter actually beat TiE Atlanta in the number of participants? It's Mysuru. So, yeah. And lots of great programming. But yeah, so that's the beginning. So there is another program called TiE, which I know that Mysuru is going to launch later this year. And that is for the high school students. There's no such time as there's no early time for teaching kids entrepreneurship. So hopefully that will take off. And then as you are looking to grow, advice around that, TiE Atlanta has a program called COBA. I was talking to Sabarisan and Dr. Parsuraman about this. It's Council of Board Advisors, or COBA, where a company which is, we say between $5 and $50 million of revenue, doesn't know how to scale, doesn't know how to get to the next level, or is looking for funding for the first time, or looking for M&A, exit opportunities, or even acquiring companies. How do you go about doing all that, right? So that's what this organization, this group helps you with. I mean, TiE Atlanta has a foundation, associated foundation, and the founder of the company, because pays money into the foundation in exchange for the services. Because nothing free is ever considered to be good, right? If we get it free, there's no value to it. So we make sure that there is meaningful money given by the founder into the foundation. They're paying for the services indirectly, but it's a very small number, nominal amount. But then, I mean, they get some amazing advice, right? They get some amazing advice from some of the top entrepreneurs and people who have been in that field or solving a specific functional problem. Okay, so yeah, it's been a great set of programming. We also have a very thriving Angels program. So I know that TiE Mysuru is also about to launch an Angels program. You learn a lot. You learn a lot when you are part of an Angels program. Personally, I think there are lots of smart people in this room, but you may not have actually done any investing, and to participate in an Angels program will teach you a lot. So I definitely will be happy to work with anybody within TiE Mysuru who is responsible for that program, and I think it's Mahesh Rao that's responsible for it, but anybody else as well, and kind of help you set up how to make it into a thriving program, right? Both provide with, thank you, both provide, identify right kind of startups to attract them and so on and so forth, and make sure that it's a learning opportunity for the members, right? Because as you're making investments, they don't have to be very large investments. In fact, I would say do not make it very large investments, but definitely make it so that you learn how a convertible note is supposed to be structured. What are the success factors within a startup, for it to be considered to be for investment? What are the characteristics of a successful startup? So those are the kinds of things that you learn as you participate in a well-run Angels program. So there are so many avenues still to be traveled on by TiE Mysuru. I'm really proud. Yeah, to me this was more of a passion project, very frankly. When I launched TiE Mysuru, I wanted to give it a go. And as you all know, the first year I said I don't care even if we don't have any revenues, and I'll pay for it. But we need to have this program in Mysuru. And I know that some of you are thinking, so what is in it for this guy? Not the first time in my life have people asked me that question, by the way. Okay, but there was nothing in it for me. I was just trying to kind of really. I wanted this to happen for the city and for entrepreneurs, and it's been very rewarding. I mean, the amount of effort that you all have put into taking it to this next level has been the only reward that I wanted, and I'm very thank you for doing that. I mean, it means a lot to me, and it means because this is what I'm here for, right? I mean, I want to support entrepreneurship. I want to support the city of Mysore. So Anyway, I said a lot of things. It's been a lot of fun going down this road, and we are living in a different age today, and and I'm so glad that our town of Mysuru is going to be a big part of this ecosystem. Okay. Glad to be here. Thank you. Happy to take any questions. Is that something? Yeah.
Thanks. Check. Check.
Thank you, Mr. Sid, for that wonderful narration of the whole journey that you've been through, and for connecting the dots so precisely from when you started studying in school in Mysore to how you're giving back to the city. You connected all the dots that are on the map. Just a quick summary before we let Mr. Shankar Prasad engage with the audience and everyone in Q&A. You said you kept working until you felt like you wanted to start something of your own, and then you kept working and you made it really fun and you had a very nice time at it until a certain point of time when you wanted to do something different, and then you still kept working, and then you learnt about exiting, and that was something you found out. And hey, you know what, it's not bad to exit, right? I mean, it's a great thing that can happen, and people did not understand it as much as they should have, but you've given a new perspective that exit is something really important. And then you continued to keep working, but only you kept working together with your family, and as a family you took a decision to give back to the places that made you who you are, and to contribute more to the community, and not just in a sort of a social service or a CSR sort of way, but empowering entrepreneurs and also sort of helping people build careers, helping people go beyond certain boundaries. And well, I mean, you also mentioned about the different roles that are important, which is accounting. That's something you have to pay really good attention for. And yeah, you mentioned marketing, which makes me really happy personally. So I think it's amazing what you've done, and you kind of talked about defining how individuals evolve everywhere. And I just was reading about you on your LinkedIn, and I've heard a lot of words about redefining, right? That's something that people always keep using, but I underlined the word Silicon Road Ventures, which is defining the future of global commerce. Because it's not redefining, you're not saying something is not right and then saying, oh, let me give it a new spin to it. No, you're actually defining new things that till then was unheard of, and that's something amazing. So before I hand over for the Q&A, I just saw one video on your LinkedIn which said, described you as an entrepreneur who broke all the rules yet achieved great success. And this was by Charlie Paparelli. So I think that would be the first question. Sorry, Shankar sir, for stealing your thunder. But I would start with the first question and said, what were these rules that you broke, and how did that contribute to achieving great success? Maybe some 2 or 3 of that, and we'll get started with that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sid, and over to you, Shankar sir.
Yep. Thanks, Adarsh, and quite a lot of gyan, I should say, from you, Sid. Until my friends here can collect their thoughts to ask questions, I have a couple of them to start off with. You did speak about the marketing and the strategies for a startup. I would like to know, could you just tell us about building relationships, both for entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, and also for investors? There are investors here. So could you just throw some light on how important is building relationship, not just marketing or maybe networking? How important is
Okay, so yes, great question, Shankar. First of all, thank you. It is human beings that are interacting with other human beings, and so I think one of the things that we always we sometimes forget that, right? I mean, we are looking at a transaction. We are looking at that guy sitting there. He looks like a bag of money to me, and I'm going to get him to invest in my company. But at the beginning and the end of it is that it's human beings, and you got to connect with human beings at the level of a human being. Okay, and that's one of the toughest things I find, because I know that I'm trying to spend time and I'm trying to really connect with people, but they don't look at me like that all the time, because they have their minds on various other things. So one of the most interesting things that when you talk about investors, when I started raising a fund, we started raising the fund in late 2019 and 2020, right, COVID. And so it's been February of 2020 and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, now there is this thing. Probably, at the time we all thought it's going to be for 2 months or 3 months, it's going to go away very soon. So I said, it's okay, even if it's 6 months, I don't in no hurry, I don't need to do anything. But nevertheless, anyway, there's no harm in having a few calls with people and talking to them about the fund. So we started doing that. And to my surprise, people started making investments. And I was amazed. I mean, so first of all, there were people that I knew earlier, right? So there was one category of people, and that's one of the mistakes that people make, is that they don't ask people that respect them to make investments. Do you believe in me? If you do believe in me, because one of the things that happened when I had my exit with SBI was many of my friends had said, hey, come on, man, you didn't tell me you're going to have an exit. I would have invested.
Yeah, correct.
So many of them would say that, and I'd say, okay, fine. The next thing I do, I'll tell you. So I went to them, same people. Well, some of them meant it, some of them did not, but they all made investments. So it was personally very important to me that this fund is successful, right? Because I have taken my friend's money. So that's one thing. But also there were others, Shankar, that were very senior level people. I mean, the CEO of Home Depot is an investor in my fund. So we have a total about 50 investors, and some of them are, very, very successful people, and it's very humbling, right? So, you kind of connect with them, and it's not about invest in my company or invest in my fund. It's about, do we share the same values?
True.
Do we share the same values? And that is the basis of any relationship, whether it's personal or business.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm sure there's quite a lot of learning and a subtle message there for all of us there. Now, you have been on all sides of the table, having worked in a company and started a company, made a pitch to a company which bought over yours. Now you have been looking at the pitch decks of the young entrepreneurs who have been pitching for you, and the others at the various forums that you spoke about. Now, could you give us some tips here? Some of the young friends here would like to know what's the best pitch deck according to you?
Yeah, so great question, because this has been one of my big, this is what I help entrepreneurs with, and we all do in my fund. So people don't message their product or service very clearly. Okay, I have looked at pitch decks that go for 6 slides, and they're very passionate about what they're talking about, but I don't know what the heck they are solving yet. They're talking about a big problem, and they're kind of they provide hints as to what they might be solving, right? It's on slide 7 by the time I've gone to sleep, right, when they are telling me. So the first message is, be very clear about who you are, right? Say, I'm the CEO of whatever. I'm the CEO and founder of this, and this is the problem we are solving, and this is how we do it. This is not a suspense movie. This is not Alfred Hitchcock. You don't have to wait till the end to tell them how you're going to solve the problem. First thing, say that, okay? Then if you want, you can go back and say this is the market and this is the problem, etc., etc. So that's one piece. Second is, people don't have financial information in their pitch decks. They think that somehow, I'm not going to talk about finances and maybe they'll make the investment. No. Nobody is going to ever make an investment in your company without looking at your financial information. So what are you hiding? Talk about it. Right? Or say, I don't have revenues. That's okay, but at least say it, because invariably they're going to ask you the question, right? Okay. And the third is, you don't make an ask. People don't make an ask. I've gone through pitches. They say, okay, what? I say, yeah, great company. Okay. Now, what did you want? Right? You're looking to raise money. Yeah, we're looking to raise money. How much are you looking to raise? Oh, we are looking to raise, whatever, call it $2 million. Oh, okay. And what are the terms? Oh, that I don't know. That's okay. That's a fair thing. But you say, I'm going to raise $2 million and I'm going to use it for this purpose. So those are the 3 big things that people make mistakes on.
Okay, great. I'll come to the other side. I'm looking at both from the entrepreneur side of it and from the investor side of it. Now, coming from the investor, a question that would generally be asked is, How do you work out on your funding portfolio if you are an investor? What would be the tips for investors here? There are quite a few here. And how do you look at what's the best balance, I would say?
Yeah. So it depends on what stage companies. So we invest in early stage companies, and probably that's what you are looking for, because later stage companies, I mean, it's very simple, right? P&L, EBITDA, look at the financials, and that's what helps you decide. But for really early stage companies, especially the ones which may not even have real significant revenue, how do you determine whether it's a good okay. So the way, we have a scorecard, right, which determines, we determine what we want to invest in. So first of all, does it match your thesis? As an investor, you should always have a set of criteria which will determine whether you're going to make an investment or not. Okay. In our case, it is got to be an early stage tech company doing something for retail e-commerce or CPG in payments. And we're very flexible about the definition of it, but I think that's one of the aspects. And sometimes, we also ask questions as an investor. I ask questions I challenge the founder, not because they might have a perfect product, but how do they handle, pressure? Right? I can say, no, I don't think that you're totally made up these numbers. I don't think that. I mean, how did they answer that question, right? You have got a lot of competition. Do you know how many? And they have to be able to answer that properly, gracefully, and so on and so forth. And then the last thing I'll say is, of course, the deal itself, right? So what is the deal, right? I mean, is it within the criteria of what you like? So, I mean, it's a multiple of revenue. I mean, I don't know, whatever it is. So you got to obviously understand that. And then are you going to get what you're looking for? So in our case, sometimes we might be looking for a board position. We might be looking for advisor shares. There are various ways to skin the cat, but basically what are you looking for? So these are all criteria. So it sounds like a lot, but it's probably about 15, 20 different things that you look at, and then you say, yes, I like it. And beyond that, there's a diligence, more detailed diligence as well.
Obviously. So the metrics is quite definable and good. Before I throw it open to the guests here, of course, two things you did when I had this, like, how do investors see a one-man, one-woman entrepreneurship, or should they have a fancy name of IIT, IIM or RECs or big names as this thing, or if an idea comes? That's one question. I'll finish off this so that you can take a corollary, I would say, to this. What would be a key differentiator? A minimum viable product or a minimum viable tested idea? How do you?
So the first, I'll answer the second question first. It depends on you, actually, as the investor, right? So the earlier you go, the better deal you get, right? I mean, if it is a tested idea, but not yet a product, then you might get a better deal than, but chances of failure are higher, obviously, right? So I think, so that is that. So it depends on you. So if you are comfortable making that choice, and if you know the industry very well, etc., we don't. So we only invest in companies that have at least, say, $200,000-300,000 of annual recurring revenue, right, up to $1 million. That's our sweet spot, roughly. So that's how we do it. But it depends on you as an investor. But the question about the founders, I should have answered that. I should have actually gone beyond the IIT, IIM and all that. No, that's definitely not the case. In fact, I mean, my personal experience is that people that come from those very elite institutions are not scrappy, and they take a lot for granted, and they don't respond well to pressure. So definitely not. But what helps is, from an investor perspective, I'm looking for repeat founders. So if you started a company, Shankar, after your prior experiences, I'm willing to trust you more than a first-time founder. Okay? But also, the other thing I would encourage everybody to think about is look for co-founders. Because the problem with startups is, I mean, it's not easy, right? I mean, you have to have a strong stomach, you'll have bad days, and there are people that give up. Well, I don't want to give up after I've given them my money, right? So you having a co-founder who you have convinced of the idea, who is also giving up a lot to come and work with you, I think is an important thing. So finding a co-founder is something which is important, which I didn't do, but yeah, that's very important.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sure Some of you might have some questions, collected your thoughts. Yeah. We have a couple of hands coming up. Yeah, we'll start off with.
Hi, I'm Sujay here. So my question revolves around scaling up, where you mentioned you have to invest a lot in sales. Sometimes startups tend to lose focus on their bottom line when it comes to increasing their top line, and as most of the early stage investments and valuations are based on your top line, how do the startups keep their focus on the bottom line, because that tends to have a trickle down effect in the long term. That's one on the startup side. And on the investor side, is this scenario changing where the investors are only looking at the top line? Are they also looking at the bottom line now?
Great question, right? Very, very good question. So I don't know if you would have invested in Amazon till they started making a profit. I would, right? And I'll tell you why. So the way you got to think about it is unit economics, okay? You got to think about unit economics. You need to make sure that you have a sound business model where even if you, so if you stop spending, anticipating growth, then you'll start making money. That's the important thing. So as an investor, that's what I'm looking for, right? So if you tell me that I'm manufacturing this thing, I'm paying the manufacturer 100 rupees for it, and I'm selling it for 50, I'm not going to invest in you, because I don't care how much you scale, you'll never make money. In fact, you'll probably lose more and more money, right? But if you say that I'm manufacturing this at 100, I'm selling it at 700, but I'm losing money because I'm growing at a pace where I need to place orders for 10 times the number of chairs, then I'm going to sell whatever. So I think, so one of the mistakes that startups make, and many people even at intermediate stages make, is they don't think like large companies. So if you're raising money, the reason you're raising money is, even though you are a startup, with 5 people in a room, you got to start thinking of like a company which is a Google. So you got to spend like that, right? So you got to build that same infrastructure. You got to build that same kind of packages that will attract the best developers to you. You got to start doing the same kind of marketing that Google does. That costs money, right? So what we don't do as startups is me too. I made that same mistake, right? I was constantly looking at the bottom line. I think as a startup, that's a mistake. Now, it takes more guts to do it, I get it, but as long as your unit economics are strong, you can always go back to the basics, right? You can stop spending on all those other things and you can get back to profitability. But you have to kind of spend more aggressively. That is what venture money is for. And there are many people that don't see that. I mean, they say, no, I'll take your money, but I'll put it in the bank. I'm going to just still be cash flow positive. Well, what's the point? I mean, you're wasting 5 years of your life and my money.
Correct. Yeah. Okay, there's one hand.
Hi, Sid. It's so nice to meet you after a long time. Sid, it was my pleasure to travel the journey at SPI with you for almost 7 years. We saw that growth from the small, we became big, almost 30-40% growth year on year. My question here is, small is beautiful, you agreed. When we grow, when we scale up, when we become large, the second level leaders find it difficult to manage, especially because that the previous thing, when they were all connected to everyone, that something element get missed. When we grow, what do you suggest you have to do to keep the same value system and culture intact? Otherwise, if you bring outsiders like mergers and acquisitions, we may likely to lose these values and culture, which may not go so very well, which I have witnessed and you have witnessed. What do you suggest here?
So first of all, Harris, really good to see you. That's a great question, and there's no easy answer to it. It's all about, and you know this as well, it's about making the investments into the culture of the organization. And if you remember that, whenever we had new hires in SPI, we used to have coffee with Sid. Remember that? Yeah, we used to all get together and I would tell them funny stories about the company and they would all ask me, why are you in Mysuru? That was always one of the questions, the new hires. Why not set up something in Bangalore? Right? And they would always also say, why are you focused only on retail? And so there are all these things, but people have to buy into your vision, and I think that's important. M&A is a little bit more tricky, definitely, and you have to make sure that everybody is on the same page, and and it's not that the acquiring companies' methods of doing things or processes are the best. You have to be fair about it and be objective and pick the best processes, and hopefully the combined company is better. But yeah, it definitely takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of communication, and again, that is one thing that, as you remember, that we used to do a lot. I used to talk to everybody in the organization once a quarter, really early for me at 7 a.m. And I talked to leadership team once a month, and to my own team once every week to make sure that we are all on the same page. It's constant communication over and over.
Okay. Before the next question, of course, I had this question. What would be your tips for a startup to balance his work-life relationship? Work-life balance.
Work-life balance, yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a tough one, because see, the thing is that usually when you have a startup, okay, I mean, either you have a great idea, you're passionate about it, and you're living it, breathing it, whatnot. See, I mean, if somebody is forcing you to do a startup, then anyway you're doing the wrong thing anyway, right? But I don't think that's how it is. So, well, I mean, it's like you have kids, right? And if you have a son and you give him a new cricket bat, he's going to live with that cricket bat, right? So, does that make him a bad person? No. I mean, does it make him a socially incompetent person? No. He just loves what he's doing. He wants to passionately play with that new thing. It's that, right? So that's why that's a tough question to answer.
Correct. It would also go culturally. The balance would be quite different from a Western or a European to an Indian, where here the wives or the father and the mother will also get involved in the business on the dining table and.
Yeah, Adarsh asked me that question about what are the mistakes and how did you succeed in spite of the mistakes? Is that what you asked?
Yeah.
Breaking the rules. Which rules did I break? So one of them is involving family, right? Second is I didn't raise any money. So anyway, but I think you have to see this whole thing. We are no different than the Prime Minister of India bringing the entire country along, and some people won't come along, or the Chief Minister of the state. So, you have to constantly sell your vision to everybody who is a stakeholder in this, including your own family, right? And I was very fortunate, I had a very supportive family. I mean, Sophie and Shanish and Sheena, and they were, always not only kind of supported in the sense of, what, awesome, go do it, they participated and helped and so on. So I think, yeah, I mean, you got to bring everybody along. You got to make sure that they all believe in your dream, right?
True.
And that can be all consuming. And if that happens, then it's fun, right? If it is not, then it definitely can be painful. Yeah. And I also have come across companies that unfortunately we even invested in where passionate founder, but spouse was not supportive. So
it happens. Yeah.
I think I'm audible. Yeah, hi Sid, my name is Ajay. I'm a B2B SaaS founder. So my question to you is, we are also primarily building local and selling global. So what are the distribution hacks you recommend for a SaaS company who wants to capture more market in the States, basically building locally? And I mean, we have tried India SaaS, but that's really not been effective for us. But global SaaS is working. But yeah, I mean, what are the distribution strategies you recommend for somebody trying to grow in the States, especially? We are a product-led sales company. We are not a sales-led growth. We are primarily focusing on product onboarding, making it easier for users to do it yourself in a SaaS business. But for a company in that space, how do you recommend? We are primarily in the B2B space. Yeah.
So first of all, B2B SaaS is like magic words for venture, by the way. Oh wow, B2B SaaS, that's the one I want to invest in. So that's great that you're doing that. But also I thought when you said product-led company rather than sales-led company, I think that is code word for I don't want to invest in sales.
We invest in marketing, we don't invest in field sales.
Okay, well, so that's fine. I mean, as long as, see, I don't know what your company does, but I mean, I don't know. So, I mean, I don't know the answer without knowing the specifics about your business. Happy to help if you'd like, but, you know, more, I think that probably it is going to be to identify the right channels and the right marketing places, right, where you kind of put your message out and hope, you know, get in front of your potential buyers. If you are in front of your potential buyers, then, and you're still not selling, then you don't have product market fit. So that's a different problem altogether. But if you are solving a real problem that nobody else is solving well, and are doing it better, way better than others, cheaper than others, etc., and you're in front of people, then yeah, it should sell.
My next question is, you know, I mean, as a venture firm, what is your anti-portfolio? The companies you missed on, is your anti-portfolio? Like some of the companies you passed on, but they actually went out and became big. Yeah.
Oh, did I make any investments that I regretted later?
Some of the investment companies you passed on, but
yeah, that
anti-portfolio.
Okay. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. There are definitely there are companies that I wish that I had invested in. Actually, you know, we have been investing through the fund for the last 2 years, and the last 2 years have been very has seen a lot of aggressive growth, right, in terms of valuations. In fact, we have lost some deals because we provided a term sheet, but then some larger funds, well-known funds from the Bay Area, they jumped in, swooped in, and they said, well, I mean, I will take the whole round, or, you know, we don't want any other fund to come in, or whatever. So there have been situations like that where we got sidelined. So yeah, definitely there are more of that than, I don't think yet we have come across a situation where we chose not to make an investment and I don't know, I mean, I might be forgetting something, but that went and became really big.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. One from an investor standpoint, another from a founder standpoint. From an investor standpoint, an exit option has to be a rule. Every investor has an expectation. I don't think anything wrong with it. Timing could be different and all that. But for a founder, is an exit an option, or it's a typical mindset one should have? Because there are some people passionate, they want to grow with the organization and remain with the organization, creating value for other investors. That is it.
Yeah, let me answer that first. No, I think it's very unfair for a founder to get external investors and then say there's going to be no exit, right? I mean, so there are situations where some founders will give you great dividends, right? I mean, there are lots of micro lending. I mean, I don't like those kinds of companies, but companies that do small loans and charge large interest, and they'll pay you a big interest. You give me the money and I'll hold it for as long as you want. So usually there is always a secondary option, exit option. So, you know, you can always sell your shares to somebody else who now wants to take on that position. But usually, I mean, as a venture funds, and I would say even as an angel investor, I would be hesitant to invest in companies that don't have a very clear path to exit, and that the founder can't articulate, right? What are you going to do 5-10 years, and what happens afterwards? I mean, those have to be very clear questions. So because if he's going to choose to run it like a lifestyle business, then he or she should not be raising any venture money for sure.
The other question I have is, there is a school of thought which says founders should focus on creating values rather than chasing the valuation bug. They say if you create value to a stakeholder, the valuation will follow. How do you agree with that?
That's a deeply philosophical question. Sounds like. Well, I mean, I think value to the investor versus valuation of the company. So if you create, I mean, I don't know. I think what that might be referring to is, I mean, for example, we, right now, at least the stage of companies that we invest in, we are looking for top line growth. That's it. That's the most important thing to us. And we are looking for other things too, right? So we are making sure that they are scaling. I think there was a question about, when you're scaling, how do you, build your team and so on. I think that was kind of sort of what somebody asked earlier. But yeah, I think you got to make sure that the startups you're working with are also building a team which is capable of scaling, because one of the challenges, as you know, I mean, even your experience, Abhishek, right? I mean, a company which is, 100 crores needs different kinds of skills than a company which is at 1,000 crores, right? And that is in human resources, it's in operations, it's in finance, and so on and so forth. So you got to have strong leadership that is able to either provide additional training, or in some cases where the leaders cannot fit, they have to be either moved to other areas or let go or whatever it is, because they will be hampering the growth of the organization otherwise. So that was another way to create value, if you will. So I would definitely look at, are they creating top line growth? Are they able to build a team which is built for the next stage of the company? And whether they are constantly building differentiators or capabilities which will help them stand out in the specific solution space they're trying to address. I think if all those three are matched, then I think you've got a winner.
Yeah, I think Venkatesh.
Should the most of the startup, they have a confusion status saying that they have to be in the value creation or valuation game? Because most of the Bangalore company, if they look at the startups, they're in the valuation, they're following up the valuation. So whenever I interact with most of the startup, they are confused with should they focus on evaluation or value creation. What is your piece of advice on that? And second question, just followed up. Most of the startup also now worried about should I project in the deck of 2x, 5x, 10x? Because how do I impress the investors? Is it 10x is what makes me to impress, or my valuation, or a value creation?
Yeah. So I kind of sort of answered that with Sabrishan's question, Venkatesh, but yeah, I think value, I'd say basically that if you are creating value in the form of increasing top line growth, building a good team, right, and also creating differentiators and creating IP, then valuation will automatically grow. Okay. And the 2x, 5x, 10x, that's a very interesting question, right? The thing is that nobody has yet asked me that question as to what is the right multiple at this time, right? Is it 5x, it is 10x, it is 20x? Because we invest in companies at 20x of revenue. So why would I invest in a company of 20x of revenue? I'll tell you why. Because we look at the growth trajectory of the company, right? So we look at several factors, but one of them is the growth trajectory of the company. So if a company is doubling their revenue every 2 or 3 months, okay? So the way if somebody is asking for like 20x of revenue or even 30x of revenue, we are going to not make that investment immediately. We are going to look how well they are performing over a period of time, right? So let's say 3 months. So we are going to see that for the last 6 months, they have doubled their revenues every 2 months or 3 months. Now I am with them and I'm observing them closely, and they're doing the things which are right to again double their revenue. So now this is, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, okay? And they show me a path how they're going to continue that even beyond this. So now what happened is, I was at 2, right? And 2 times 20 is 40, correct? So I'm for something, as an example, $2 million of revenue, I'm paying $40 million of valuation, right? That's like, oh my God, this is like a big valuation. But if you think about it, 2 becomes 4 in 2 months, 4 becomes 8 in 4 months, 8 becomes 16 in 6 months, right? 16 becomes 32 in 8 months. So in 8 months, I'm almost 1x revenue now. So it depends on the trajectory. Now, obviously, you make a lot of, you are taking a gamble. That is the basis for those kinds of valuations, or it should be the basis. So if somebody comes to you and says, oh, you know what, I've grown 10% last year. This year I'm going to grow 15%. But I heard that I'm going to get 20x valuation. That's not how this works, right? They have to show you how you get to a more reasonable valuation, because nobody in their sane mind invest in a company which is 40x of revenue otherwise, or 20x of revenue, right? So that's really that's how you need to think about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, I think the one last question we'll take. Yep.
Thank you very much. My name is Manjunath. Just a quick question. Sir, you told importance of getting a co-founder. In terms of that, I'm a startup owner. I run a small software startup. So in terms of getting, that's a team. Like I have few employees, but where do you get a co-founder? In terms of TiE, can we have some kind of a structure where interested people like I can interact and then maybe tie up with something? Because I'm looking for an entrepreneur. I don't want an employee, but it's very difficult to find. So where do I find? Can we make something happen here in this forum?
Yeah, after that first beer, I think you'll find a lot of people. It's a question that a lot of entrepreneurs ask. It's a question that lots of people ask, right? I mean, I get many people, after my exit, they offered me, I'd like for you to become CEO. You become CEO. But you be my co-founder. And it was not what I wanted to do. But yeah, I think that's what you do, right? You build relationships, and after a while, you are going to actually get to know people well. And when they are ready to do the next thing, you call them up. Actually, very interestingly, that I'm trying to set up a fund in India, and I don't yet have a person to run it, because it's very difficult to do it remotely. And one of my classmates from BITS Pilani, a very smart guy, he's the CEO of CARE, which is this credit rating company, right? It's like CRISIL. So CARE rating, and so I was going to call him. I've kept in touch with him, and he's a very smart guy, of course. And I was trying to show somebody that he is CEO of CARE ratings, and news from today was he just resigned from that position. So I said, whoa, okay, I need to call him now, because you never know, right? He might be the guy that helps run this thing. So that's the way you do it. Build relationships, keep those relationships going. You never know when you will have that opportunity to work together.
Okay, I'll take the last one from, yeah.
Hi Sid, actually I turned up late. Actually I was traveling from Bangalore. You were just telling about the investments. So you were telling about the 1x or 2x or 3x business which will be done in 3-4 months, and based on that the valuation will be done. But the people like us who develop the new contents or the new softwares will take at least 1.5 years to get the market. So how will the valuation be done for our kind of companies? Because our content development itself will take 1 year. And for the market to accept our content will take another 6 to 7 months. Okay, the IP value of the content that we have developed would be more, in the sense the people might accept, or it is a market accepted product. Okay, what will be the valuation? Okay, when you consider me developing a product which is ready to launch, and how do you consider or how do you value that particular product?
Yeah, so
this company is Vidvat.
Yeah. So it depends on the founder. So founder has to have the credentials. Like I said, I mean, ideally has had successful exits, knows how to do something. I think that's the biggest factor. Okay. The second is, are you in an industry where there are comparables which show big valuation increases over a period of time? And the third is, do you actually have a differentiator or a road to a differentiator which is going to allow you to stand out in that market? If you have those three, then you can get the highest possible valuation possibly. If you only have 2 of those 3, then maybe slightly lower and so on, right? So those are the kinds of things that any investor is going to look at. Now, again, you got to think as a founder, I would not go and necessarily raise a lot of money before I have a product in the market. That's just me. And not everybody can afford to do it, I know that, but if you can, you should hold off or bootstrap it to the extent possible, because you are giving up probably big value in terms of equity. Equity is the single biggest thing you have, right? So to get into the excitement, oh, I'm venture backed, people give up significant equity very early on, which is a big mistake. And there are some even venture funds or angel investors that don't even know how to invest, so they will take up too much of your company and your company becomes uninvestable. So you have to be very careful how you do all this, but my recommendation would be that you go and try to bootstrap it to the extent possible, go to friends and family and do that, right? Get them to kind of come in with an open note, with no cap, etc., till you get to a product, right? Then once you have a little bit of traction in terms of revenue, that's when you go and look for angel investors or maybe a small VC like a pre-seed VC. So there are many that will give you once you have a product.
Okay. So I'm sure we can have many more questions and get his thoughts during our networking dinner. But one last question, fundamentally, which has been on my mind since long years, I should say, couple of years, I should say, not long, is that at what age you think is the right time to get into entrepreneurship? With school pitch fest happening, with Atal Tinkering Labs, in our own schools, students of 8th, 9th standard coming out with a business idea. So parents are confused, some of us, I would say. So what do you think is the best age to get into an entrepreneurship?
No, so, if you're asking how early is too early, there's no such thing. I don't think so. I think that entrepreneurship is not about just starting companies, right? It's about knowing how to build ideas, how to hone ideas, how to pitch ideas, right? It's knowing how to manage your money. It's a lot of life skills. And the single biggest reason why startups fail is because founders don't know how to manage cash.
Absolutely.
Right? True. And so if your son or daughter, you're teaching them how to manage cash, you're teaching them how to passionately believe in an idea and pitch it, I think they'll succeed in whatever they choose to do, whether it's an entrepreneur or not. Right? So entrepreneurial skills are very valuable irrespective. Now, I thought you were going to ask me what is the ideal age to become an entrepreneur, and there is no age. People become entrepreneurs after, working in the corporate world for 25, 30 years, right? There are so many, but yeah, there is no such thing. But listen, the thing is that, you passionately believe in something and you got to build it.
Very true. Yeah. But it's a sad part that the schools haven't caught up with that kind of I'm sure things would change. Okay, I'm sure we'll have, as I said, as we go out for dinner and can have many more, we can interact with him and others, I think we can continue.
Thank you so much for that insightful discussion. I'm sure all of us have clear-cut answers, right? You didn't talk about philosophies or just philosophies or something in the air, right? Whatever you said had 1, 2, 3 or ABC. So it's something we could follow and could comprehend to a certain extent. Before I call upon the delegates to hand over the memento, if it's not too much and not to again impose too much on Shawnish, but if it's okay with Shawnish, I would like for him to answer the question on the work-life balance that you answered as part of the question that was asked. How do you think about it? He mentioned certain things. How does it feel like to work with your father and kind of be your own, but also be part of the team, but also sit at the dining table? How is it? What do you think life-work balance is?
So just to answer the question that was asked was about the work-life balance for startups. I think, like my dad said, I think when you're doing something that you really love to do, then it's not really work. Your work becomes your life, and it's all the same, So, and I think it's similar in my case too. Like, I mean, I get to work with my dad. It's awesome, and I do something new every day. And in that way, it's not a problem. Work life is balanced. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anish. Yeah. No, I'm sad I can't get to say anything fun about it now.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll think about it later. Okay, so thank you, Shawnish, for answering the question. So I would like to now invite Mr. Achyuta Bachali and Mr. Sabarishan onto the stage to hand over a memento to Sid as an appreciation from all of us at TiE Mysuru.
It's a Kanjifa art, very predominant in this part of the country, patronized by the Maharajas of Mysore. Quite a lot of paintings in the Mysore Palace are part of. We have a very well-known Kanjifa artist in Mysore, Kanjifa
Raghupati Bhatt.
pretty well-known the world over. As a token of appreciation, we take it back to yeah.
It's travel friendly. Small and travel friendly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Sid. Please take the seat here, and thank you, Shankar sir, for conducting that wonderful Q&A session, and thank you, audience, for participation and for the active involvement. Now I would like to call Mr. Kishan to please come onto the stage and deliver the vote of thanks, and then all of us will go and do our favorite thing post the event, which is networking. I don't know why you all laughed. I was just going to say networking.
A very good evening, all. It is a pleasure to be part of TiE. I just had gone through a court few days back when I just received the invitation on this particular event. The same quote is again quoted with SJC's step today as well. A leader is the one who knows the way, who goes the way, and who shows the way. Yes, you are the one for that particular quote, sir. We are very happy to have you here. And indeed, this session, we had heard about you for almost all the meetings wherein we had gone through the TiE Mysuru chapter. Because since you are the one who just sowed the seed, just like me, there are plenty of here who have already started eating fruit out of it. So thank you very much for your, for initiation of having TiE to Mysuru here. And as others rightly said, your narration was so simple that none of us had any other, queries to go on with. You were very direct to the point. And being part of TiE Mysuru chapter, I wholeheartedly thank you for your time here and giving us all the informations wherein we are supposed to look forward hereafter. In the absence of our beloved TiE Mysuru chapter president Sudanma sir, I extend greetings for him, and I extend thanks to all the charter members and board members of TiE Mysuru chapter. Sabarishan sir for giving introduction about welcoming the entire audience. Adarsh for giving introduction about Sid, and Shankar Prasad sir for giving going on with the Q&A. And I thank all the members who are here for your valuable time. I wish you people have a very good dinner right now. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.